Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for honeybee stamps. Today I am going to be creating an all die cut card. I know, who am I even? But I'm going to be using the Country Christmas Wreath, the Barnwood planks, the Blessed honey cuts, and then the itty bitty pumpkins and leaves. I know that we're heading into Christmas, but I'm not ready to let go of Thanksgiving yet. Speaking of Thanksgiving, before we get into the card, Honeybee is having a Black Friday sale Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 20% off of your purchase, which will be added automatically. So head over there. There'll be a link below if you're watching in YouTube to check out all of their wonderful things that you can purchase. I love the majority of their stuff, and they just had a wonderful new holiday cheer release, which is part of the items I'm using today are from that. I'm just using them a little bit differently because you know I like to stretch my products. So all of these, everything that I'm doing here today is going to start as white cardstock. A long time ago, now if you have colored cardstock, by all means use it. But I learned quite some time ago in my card making career that I would purchase a lot of colored cardstock and I would not use it. I'm just I'm a colorist and I like to do one layer things, and so I just really was not using that. So instead, I chose to invest in distress inks and distress oxides. Today, I'm going to be using all distress inks. But because I have those distress inks, I can pretty much make any color cardstock I want. And so I save the money on the colored cardstock, except for black. I always, or like a gray, black and gray, I pretty much buy. But mostly I just buy a ream of Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock because that's what I do all my coloring on. And then I can use all of that and just change it up with the inks that I own. So here I'm doing the wreath. You saw me put down the crushed olive, and then I kind of traced out my dye so that I would know where to add my shading. I was trying to do it darker on the inside and lighter on the outside. But this certainly is not it's not an exact science, so I'm just kind of guesstimating, trying to leave some lighter areas and not just have it all be dark so that I would have variation of color. So but you could do this any way that you wanted. You could also die cut it first, but because the little pine needles are so intricate, like they have all the little like prongs, I was worried about bending them, so that's why I chose not to do it. If you were doing less of a ink blending with your tool and more of a swiping your ink pad across, you could probably do it that way and have no issues. So once this is done, I'm just going to double check it again, that I'm happy with the way that it looks, and then I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to move on to the next one. For the next one, I'm going to be starting with the same color combination because I wanted there to be some more greenery. The wreath cuts out the pine needles, but then they also have additional like pine branches you can cut out. So I wanted to cut out some more of those. And then I also wanted to, for the other leaves that are in the wreath set, and the itty bitty leaves, I wanted to have some color variation of like yellow into green, yellow, orange, and green. And then I also did some red and some pink. Pink. I know. You're probably thinking, why, Kelly? Why would you do pink? And the reason that I did pink is because I wanted to put in little pops of seedless preserves. I really love the way that like purple and orange work together. Yellow as purple's complementary color, so orange is not a far cry from that. And then I'm just doing little corners of these, of the picked raspberry and the barn door, because I don't need a ton of either one of them. I just need the transition color. So I always do all of my distress inking twice. It's just how I feel like I get the best blend. But here you're going to see me just put it down just one time. And the reason that that is because I'm going to add more shading later on after they're cut out. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the barnwood for my background. I chose a couple of different brown colors and then also the hickory smoke to bring in some gray, some neutral. You don't have to do that. You certainly can do whatever colors you wanted. In fact, you could even do all gray. That would be beautiful. I have a reclaimed wood wall in my laundry room that's all gray. That's super pretty. But I thought that this would look best with warmer colors. I just wanted some pops of cooler tones. So I'm starting with the brushed corduroy. I'm just going to cover this whole thing. I ended up doing 2 of these panels to have enough barnwood planks to cover my background. If you're like, this is too much work, Kelly, and I'm not interested in this, I totally understand, and I don't blame you. You can get a very similar look by doing the background I'm doing here, and then stamping the honeybee has a stamp called barnwood background, which has like the planks and the wood grain and all of that. So that would be a much faster way to do it. But I wanted the texture of the die cuts because it cuts out the plank, but then it also puts in it like embosses the wood grain, and that is what I wanted. So I did not even take them off. Like I just left them as is, right on, right on the packaging. I took them out of the plastic, obviously, and then I just taped my distress inked, my inked paper right on top of these, and I ran it through exactly like this. I let that cardboard act as a shim in my my Spellbinders Platinum die cutting machine, and I just ran it through right like that. You just want to make sure that you put your cutting plate on top. Well, I guess you could just flip it over. I suppose you could just flip it over. I didn't. I ran mine so that it cut up, but whatevs. So here I'm just getting in all my little pieces parts and trying to get them taped down. I don't typically do die cut cards because I get frustrated with all the little finicky bits, but sometimes it's worth it, and in this case it totally was. So I'm coloring. I'm actually doing almost no coloring in this video. I know, we're all dead. But I am cutting out the blessed word and the halo. And then there's a little berry in the country Christmas wreath that I'm cutting that out of white as well. For the halo of the blessed, I'm using the hickory smoke to make that gray. I thought that it would be a really nice neutral background. This goes on much darker, then it dries. It dries to a really nice light gray. And it was just a good way to kind of help that white blessed pop up, but not interfere with the other colors that were going on. So now that everything is all cut out, I'm going to go back in and add some more colors into my wood. This is really totally random, going to be honest. Like, I didn't have a game plan. I was like, I'll put a little here, sprinkle of this, sprinkle of that. And you can use whatever browns you have on hand. I did try to make sure that I hit the edges up so that there would be some depth in the edges. One thing to note when I was building it, when I was putting everything together, because I was using a white cardstock, there were some areas where like maybe I didn't get it lined up as well as I would have liked, and you could see the white peeking through. So if I had to do this all over again, I would probably put it on either a darker piece of cardstock, or B, I would have colored my cardstock. Here I'm just showing you the difference between the two so that you can see that, adding that extra color really does help, and it really does change the look of it and the dimension of it. Plus, now that everything's embossed on there, that will, the embossing will catch more of the ink blending, and it just gives a lot more dimension. Before, some of you may know this, I think I've told you this in other videos, before I was a avid Copic colorer, I really still love dimension, but I really didn't know how to get it. And I was not happy with my Copic coloring, even though I owned them, and so they would just sit on my shelf. But the way that I did get dimension in my cards was I would use distress inks. I would cut things apart so I could get shading where it needed to be, and then I would glue them back together like little puzzle pieces. People, animals, flowers, like that's just how I rolled for almost every card that I made, because I really wanted the dimension. I was greedy with my dimension, but I wasn't really well versed in how to get it. That still works, by the way. That trick still works. I've just gotten better at coloring, and so I don't need to use it as often. But I do still use it on most of my die cuts, just because I get, like, I don't like a flat die cut, y'all. I just don't. And I don't like the finicky bits, so that's just me. But this is super cute, and even though this is totally made for Christmas, like, it's called the Country Christmas Wreath. It's in its name. I think that this is a great wreath for all the time. You could do multiple different things with different flowers that you have, and they wouldn't even have to be die cuts. Like, you could use stamped flowers and put them on top of it. So I just gave my wreath a little bit of extra dimension with the colors as I'm doing the pine branches and this one little green leaf thing. This is one little one. It ended up having a lot more green than any of the other colors, so I just embraced it and moved on with my life because that's how I roll. So once that's done, I'm going to move on to, I am going to speed this up because there's a lot of distress inking. I'm just going to move on to the next colors. I tried to do them in groups that made sense to me. So, like, did all the greens first, and then this one is like yellows and oranges. Did all those. And then there's some of them that I did add maybe a little touch of red here and there. Nothing totally crazy. And then once those are done, I'm going to scoot them over, grab the next round of oranges. For some of the pumpkins, I did add a little bit of red just to kind of intensify that orange color. Nothing that made them completely orange, though, or completely red, I'm sorry. Just, a little bit of something to make them more interesting. And then I did go over all of the tops of them with a little bit of yellow to kind of brighten them up. And then the last one is going to be these leaves that have the orange, the pink, and the red on them. And that's where you're going to see me bring in, words are so hard, enunciation. I complain all night at work about the officers on the radio that don't enunciate. And here I am on Facebook, not even being there on Facebook. I don't even know what social media platform I'm on, y'all. On YouTube, and I cannot say words. But anywho, so going through that, doing the, adding the red, and then the seedless preserves, I will be adding to the ones that have little bits of pink on them. And I know it does seem crazy, and I didn't add a ton, and you'll see that. I did not add a ton, just a little bit to the pink parts. But when you put the whole wreath together, those babies just pop. They are such a good contrast and complement to the rest of the colors. So now let's start building this card. I've got all of my little planks here, and I'm just going to start in the upper middle. I did not want to just start at the top with one board straight across. So I'm going to start in, like I said, the upper middle. I'm going to put one straight across, and then I'm going to start building from there. I decided that I wanted it to look like they were pieced together, like a wall would look. So I would glue it down, and then I would flip my panel over. I would trim off my extra piece because these are cut to be the size of an A2 size card. So then I could just trim that off, flip it over, and then that piece would fit in perfectly, like a little puzzle piece. Would fit right back into where the other side was missing. And sometimes I did this, with 3/4 of it and then just re-glued a quarter of it. Sometimes I did half and half. I just tried to kind of mix it up so that the wall would look genuine, like how a wall would look if you had all these parts put together. Yeah. So as far as story time goes, been just busy and working. Thanksgiving is well, it's coming up. It's today by the time you're watching this video, which is tomorrow for me. But we are actually not, Eric is working, and because we've had some people at work who have tested positive. We have had Nathan's dad has a head cold right now. I woke up this morning pretty congested and had a cough. Like, I'm just not willing to risk my parents or my grandmother. So we are going to be staying home. I plan to FaceTime in so that I can see my family. It does kind of stink, but it's only one holiday. And, I've worked in public service for the last 16 years, so it's certainly not the first one I've ever not been there for. So it's really not that huge of a deal. I will get to see them on FaceTime. Thank God for technology. And I'm pretty sure that my mama is probably going to bring me a plate and leave it on my front porch. And I am grateful for that because it also means I don't have to cook. So here I'm just kind of laying everything out and seeing how I want to build my wreath to make sure I have a good balance of color and everything's covered. This was a little bit time consuming. And then while I was doing that, I had these little white berries that I cut. And here's the only Copic coloring I'm doing. And it's just because they looked so flat. So I did just use I think I used a W1 and a W3 just to add a little bit of shading in between the berries. At the end of the day, I don't even know that this mattered because I love the glitter and the shimmer and the things. So I ended up putting glitter on those berries anyway, so I don't even know if it's a huge deal. I use my little pokey tool to poke out the E and the center of the E, the center of the B, and the center of the D, O, and the S. And then I have cut 3 of these white blessed sentiments, and I'm going to stack them up together just to make them a little thicker so it's a little bit more substantial on the card. And then once I have them all stacked together nice and neat, I'm going to glue them to their little halo, that gray halo, which you can see it in the background is so much lighter than what it was when we were coloring it. It was a much, much darker gray then. This is super simple to do. As long as you have a glue that works well for intricate dies. I have, and I would recommend, the honeybee glue for this. But somewhere between the haunted house and the supplies for the haunted house, making it back up to my craft room, I have misplaced my honeybee glue and I need to find it. But since I cannot find it at the moment, I went to my tried and true Tombow Mono Multi Glue. So I did kind of look to see if the blessed would look okay without the halo. I liked it much better with the halo, so I went ahead and adhered that down, and then that will be the center of my card. I think this is just such a great card just for the season. And then certainly it could be a great thank you card, a wonderful home, welcome to your new home kind of card. There's a lot of different ways you can just use this. And I'm surprised at how much I liked it. So I did use the pine cone. Sorry about the no transition there. I don't know what happened. I did use the pine cone honey cuts because I wanted this little bow. That was my original game plan. So I picked a light, it's like a fine glitter or black cardstock, and I cut this out. And I did go ahead and build the bow. I had to cut out the majority of that process just because for time's sake. But here I wanted I was trying to see if I could get them to make friends, and I can't. So what I ended up doing was just trimming one and the other. And so I put the bow on here after I got it all together, and I just didn't like it. I tried putting it at the bottom. I tried putting it on a diagonal in the corner. I didn't like that either. And so sometimes it just doesn't work out, and it's a cute little bow, and I'm sure I will use it for something else, but I'm just going to set it aside for another project. In adhering them, when I built them, I did them in little sections. So I laid down a pine branch, maybe some other branches, and kind of built up on top of that. And that's exactly how I glued them down. I went little section by section. That seemed to be the easiest way for me to make sure that I got all the things where I wanted them to go. On this particular branch, and I did cut it a couple of times, they have what looks like little berries included. So I went in with my white gel pen and colored the berry portion of the leaf or I'm sorry, of the die cut, white. It's not as bright white as the ones we cut out of white paper, but that's okay. It's not a huge deal. It just adds another layer of color, another thing of interest. So, and I'll glitter those as well. Yes, I will. I'll glitter all the things. So just going through, again, sped this up because it is quite time consuming. And then just kind of tucked in my little pieces parts as I went, moved off another section, glued down, starting from the bottom, so which is typically the pine branch, and then all the way back up to the top. So yeah, as I was saying, his dad has like a little head cold. And so there was some concern. We've had 2 people at my job test positive. We've had 4 people at Eric's test positive. Now, most of these people are through their quarantine time and everything like that. But since I woke up this morning with a little bit of a cough and a little bit of congestion and a headache, also my back kind of hurts, but I'm getting older and we've been doing a lot of work in the garage and I'm probably not really well hydrated. So I'm not sure what's going on. But I am going to go get tested, and I'm not going to go to Thanksgiving because I love my family and I feel like, that's what you do as a responsible adult. Now, usually, if that was the case, I would send Peanut to stay with his dad. However, Peanut was with his dad, then his dad got sick, then he came here, and now I don't want, he's not showing any symptoms, he's not showing any signs, anything like that, and so I don't want to send him back over there because his symptoms are much more severe than mine. Mine could very well just be my allergies and me being old. Like that, it happens. I'm not sure, so we're not risking it. So I would just encourage you all to, be safe and make good decisions during the holidays. And I hope that you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Definitely check out the Black Friday sales for sure. And if you follow my blog, I do have a crafty sale page there as well that will have all of the sales that I've come across listed, just kind of for ease of use for me and for you. And then, of course, the honeybee sale, which is amazing. That 20% off is just, love it. Love it. And love supporting small businesses. So now I'm going to put on the sentiment. I did consider popping it up, but I felt like, honestly, that would be a little bit too much. So I just went ahead and glued that down right on top of my little die cuts. And then I'm going to add in my glitters. I did the regular shimmer pen for basically everything that was on top of the pine needles, the pumpkins, the leaves, all that jazz. And then because I can't stop myself and I have no self-control, I did go in with some Stardust stickles into those little berries, which I think break up the wreath so nicely. But so I did go in with that. Stardust stickles are my favorite color stickles because they take on the color of whatever's behind them. And so I hit up those berries and any of the berries that were on the die cut leaves. And then that's pretty much it. That's the whole shebang. Aren't you proud of me for doing an all die cut card? I sure am. So I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.